Okay, let's have a look at some more common factor examples, but I'm going to change things slightly in this little section. So if I consider question 1, sometimes you'll be given some algebra which looks something like this. You might have 3x's plus ax's, and you'll be asked to factorise that. Okay, now in the previous examples we were doing common factor work, you were looking for a number that goes into 3x and a number that goes into ax. In this particular instance, there isn't a number that goes into 3x and a number that goes into ax, but you'll notice that there is an x present in both terms. So what we're going to do is say that there is an x common to both terms, and that is known as the common factor in this type of example. And you write that common factor down. The rest goes inside a bracket. And now you imagine expanding out that bracket. So you say x times something gives you 3x. Well, it must be the number 3. Then you say plus, because there's a plus there. X times something gives you ax's. Well, it must be an a there. So what you end up with is x lots of 3 plus a. And the common factor itself is a letter, not a number like the previous examples. So question number 2, let's have a look at 7y minus xy. And I say to you, factorise that. Okay, there isn't a number that you can see that goes into both terms, so there is no common factor which is a number, but you can see that there is a y in both terms. This y is known as the common factor, and you write it outside the bracket. Then you say y times something gives you 7y, it must be a 7, take away, y times something gives you xy, well it must be an x. Just a small point to note here, if you multiply y times x, you could write that as yx. Notice we've got xy there. Well, yx or xy mean the same thing, because remember, if you have 3 times 4, it's the same thing as 4 times 3. It gives you the same answer. So yx and xy mean the same thing. Normally, when you're writing down expressions with letters multiplied together like x and y, we write them alphabetically. So that's why in the question it's written as xy. Y times the x gives you yx, which is the same thing as xy. So that is the correct answer. Okay, number 3, let's try another one. So you might have something like 8z plus tz, and we'll say factorise that. There isn't a number that goes into this and also into that, but there is a letter z which is in both terms, and that is known as the common factor. Write it down outside a bracket. Z times something gives you 8z. Well, it must be an 8. Z times 8 gives 8z plus, and then z times something gives you tz. Well, that must be the letter t. Z times t you could say is zt, or probably better to write it as tz because that's alphabetical. So there you go, there's the answer. Just one final question, move that up a bit. Sometimes this sort of thing happens. You might have 3x minus 9ax, and you'll be asked to factorise something like that. Now you've got to be really careful with this, because sometimes the common factor is both a letter and a number. Because if you look at the 3 there and the 9 there, 3 will go into 3 and 3 will go into 9. So 3 is common to both terms. But also you'll notice that there's an x in both terms. So in fact the full common factor is 3x, not just 3 and not just x. You have to write the full 3x, and the rest goes inside a bracket. So 3x times something gives you 3x. Well, it must be 1. 3x times 1 is 3x. Take away. And then 3x times something gives you 9ax. Well, if you've got 3 times a 3, that would give you the 9. And then to get ax, well, you've already got the x there, so you need an extra a. So 3x times 3a gives you 9ax. The 3 times the 3 gives you the 9, and the a times the x gives you the ax, and it's written alphabetically. So that question there is slightly more difficult. I'll do one more, similar to number 4, before we finish this video. So if I had something like 6 y z plus 8 z, something like that. And I said to you, can you factorize that? Well, there's a 2 that goes into 6 and a 2 goes into 8, so 2 is a common factor. But there's also a z in both terms, so z can be written outside with the 2. 2z is therefore the common factor. That's the highest common factor. The rest goes inside a bracket. 2z times by, well, to get 6yz, I'd need a 3. 2 times the 3 gives you the 6. I need yz, I've got a z, I need an extra y. So 2z times 3y, 2 3s are 6, yz, plus, and then 2z times 4, 2z times 4 gives you the 8z. And there you go, there's the answer to the question. That's the end of this little video.